want to talk about the big trade yesterday in D.C., and that was Marshon Lattimore to the Commanders. Adam Peters does not talk very often, certainly not in season. A very rare opportunity for him to meet with the media today. He addressed how the trade came about, gave an opening statement on pulling off a massive swap, draft picks going out, and a 4-time Pro Bowl corner coming in.
Really excited about getting Marshon. He came in this morning, got a chance to meet him. He's what we thought he was as a person, as a competitor. And just want to thank really all the people that went into this. And it's a lot, it's not just me sitting there making calls on the deadline day. It's really, it's months, and our pro scouting staff making calls and canvassing the league and watching players throughout that whole time. Our R&D department doing a lot of work on a lot of different players, and most of this doesn't even see the light of day for anybody outside of our building. And they do a ton of work and did a lot of write-ups on a lot of different guys, and then we had a lot of people calling around the league, and we have I think we had Martin Mayhew, Chris White, Lance Newmark, Scott Fitterer, David Blackburn, all just canvassing the league for weeks and weeks and just seeing what we could get and if there's anything out there. And a lot of it just goes and nothing happens. But this year we were able to make something happen that we're all really happy about. And when you get to a certain point, you involve the coaches, and they do a great job giving you an opinion of how a player fits into your scheme. And really, there's a lot of people to thank. Certainly Mickey Loomis was really, really professional and really all that he did in terms of his communication and being straightforward. So I thank him a lot for the way he dealt with this. And really the biggest thing is we're really, really excited to get one of the best corners in the entire league and a guy who fits how we play. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He's a dog competitor. He's he's what you want in a corner. And what's really cool is we were able to know a lot more about him with he's one. You guys probably read a cool story about this, but we have 4 players from the Ohio State 2014 recruiting class now. And so we're trying to corner the market there. Those guys are pretty good. I don't know how they lost any games, but so there's some guys in this locker room that knew him already. And so that's going to make this transition even easier. And we're pumped to have him.
I was Adam Peters' opening statement today. A couple things that stood out to me, the thank yous. He is always very lengthy at times. We've taken some of his press conferences live during our show. I mean, it's not good radio, if I could say that, with all due respect to our guy, handsome Adam Peters, because he just lists off a bunch of people and he thanks everyone. But it is so classy, and it is really, really respectable. I know personally people currently in front offices in various sports who feel like they don't always get the credit that they deserve. Like everybody just talks about the GM or, the president, whoever's at the top, whatever that is. And you don't always hear about the guy that was working the phones or the R&D department or whatever. And Peters didn't after the draft, didn't after free agency, and didn't this time. He doesn't just say, I did this. This is why I like him. This is what I see. That is not his style. This is a we thing. He thanks his people. He singles out the scouting staff. He talked about R&D, which is just code for analytics people. Mm-hmm. Talked about the weeks of work on the phones. Your boy Martin Mayhew, a former GM. Scott Fitterer, a former GM, helping him work the phones. Mentioned Lance Newmark, name-checked him. I love that he does that.
Yeah, me too. It's very Gibbsian. Like Joe Gibbs, as classy as an individual could be, always talking up the opponent, and it's my fault when they lose, and when we win, and everything under the sun, and talked about all his great assistants, and everybody would get that shine. That's real leadership, right? This old community, this old culture was in anything that was possible. It was sprinting, going, me, I did that. I'm the one responsible for it. Like, remember, people were talking about the masterminding of certain signings or weird type moments like that. Who gives a damn? Who cares? I want to enjoy the football on Sunday, right? But this is what you do when you want people to believe in the operation, to feel empowered, to feel like what they're doing matters. Is you give them their flowers. You also give them their opportunity to have their voice heard, right, where it matters.
Let's go to him talking about how they zeroed in on Lattimore, because remember, when they initially canvassed the league, they're putting together a list of a plethora of players at a couple positions of need. But ultimately, they sided on Lattimore being the guy they really wanted, and that they were willing to push picks in and all. They don't like trading draft picks. I mean, it's not like in their mind they gave up nothing to go get him, a 3, a 4, and a 6 for Lattimore and a 5 coming back. This is how they decided he was their guy.
First you look at the play style and to see, does he fit our play style and the type of mindset we want on the field. And then you really, with your contacts throughout the league, you can get a lot of information on players, and certainly in your own locker room too. So all those things lined up for Marshon, and he was available, which, that's the last piece of it, I guess. You can watch him all you want and love him all you want, but if he's not available, he's not available. And we didn't know that he would be available for that whole time. But if you wait till when he's available, then it's usually too late. And so they did all that legwork. Our staff did, just in case he was, and he happened to be, and that's when we were able to make that decision quickly.
So I love this idea of, hey, we'll check in with people around the league to see what they think. These guys all have contacts, even the folks that haven't been well traveled. Like Lance Newmark has been in Detroit since the 90s, essentially, even though he's a fairly young guy in the grand scheme of things, a future GM in his own right, probably. Hotshot candidate if things go well here. But in Newmark's case, you don't think he's got relationships from just his time out on the road scouting, from being at events? Of course he does.
Of course, yeah.
That's not even working with people. Sosna's been in multiple organizations. Peters has been in New England and Denver and San Francisco and well-traveled. So between them, or having the former GMs that have been in the league forever, Mayhew played, Fitterer, who ran the Panthers a couple years ago. I mean, they really do have a staff that is both young, ascending, star hotshot kids, and then some of these old dudes, these old dogs you're teaching new tricks who have been around a long, long time. That's part of the reason why I love the staff they put together.
Yeah, where you go, I got that guy's number. I'll do it. I'll give him a call, It's nice to desire a player, but not having the wherewithal or knowledge if he's available or not. You still do your homework and then figure it out. Like, you could call the Cleveland Browns, for example, and be like, hey, let me knock on Denzel Ward. And they're like, you're out of your mind. Get out of here, stupid. Okay, well, that would have been nice. You would have given something up for him, but they weren't interested, right? So it's this perfect marriage that has to happen. It requires a ton of work and effort for everything to line up. One, you have to desire the player. The other team has the desire to move the player. And there's only a handful of teams that are in a sell mode at this point. And it was a team, ironically, that started off scoring 46 points a game. And now they've lost 7 straight, and he's at odds with them,
In 20 minutes, we'll talk to Manti Te'o, the former Notre Dame superstar, played in a national championship game. Te'o played with Marshon Lattimore in the NFL in New Orleans. Want to get his insight on the player and the trade and what he's seen from Washington. He's an NFL analyst now, so we'll go around the league with him coming up at the top of the hour. I thought this might have been the most important question that needed to be asked today, and it was early in the press conference with Peters. The balance between hoarding your picks and prioritizing next year and the future as they are, quote-unquote, recalibrating and finding north, although it feels like they are calibrated and they found north at this point at 7-2. And striking while the iron's hot, because they are really good and they have a chance to win right now. This is what Peter said on that.
You're always trying to strike that balance. And I think, I'll give you a long answer, but really we were able to pick up some draft picks earlier this year, and we had a surplus. We had 9 picks, and so that made us feel a little more comfortable doing this. And then also you're looking at the landscape of this next year's draft, this next year's free agency class, and knowing that with some of our corners that are going to be coming up as free agents, that we're going to need to either re-sign one of those guys or dip into free agency or the draft. So you weigh all that, and then you see, okay, is this player better or easier to get than maybe a free agent or a draft pick? And so knowing all that, and then knowing that we had a couple extra picks, and we still feel really good. We still have 7 picks. And I think if you look at the charts, our picks are actually, what we have now is more in terms of points than what we had, back in August. So we still feel really good about that. We have what's currently a really high 3rd round pick. We'll see how that ends, the season ends. But, and that was one pick that we certainly didn't want to give up for this. And so long answer, but that's kind of how we looked at it.
Makes sense.
100% right. Everyone starts with the same allotment, cap space, draft picks. How do you manipulate it? How do you use it? Where are you in a position of strength? And in a few years, they might have no cap space but extra picks. You have to be judicious and use it that way. It might be vice versa at certain points. You use the assets you can, and your deployment of them decides how good a GM you are. You know what I mean? Like, what if you think of it in terms of actual cost? Yes, it's going to take some salary cap space, but if you were to combine, say, a first round pick and then $30 million of cap space over the next couple of years, that's a huge premium of resources where you need an excellent return from the player. This is, kind of in the middle of that, where a pretty decent premium is paid for the player, and then in terms of salary. So you've got a luxury of both, and that's how they thought of it. I think it's so smart.
Yeah, they had extra picks because they made trades.
Mm-hmm.
And as we surmised yesterday, and it sounds like we were right, they probably don't make this deal if they don't have the new third-round pick. They don't give up a third-rounder and have no third-round pick this coming draft. But because they had two of them, they felt like it was an abundance. They kept the better of them, which that value means they have more draft value right now than they did this summer, as he said. And on top of that, they have the second most money to spend in free agency. Now, that changes a little bit when you bring in Lattimore, because you view him now basically, as he said, as a free agent addition. You're comparing Lattimore at $18 million for next year and the year after, or a free agent to be at that number or a little higher for a player of Lattimore's caliber on the open market. It's going to cost more than 18 to sign a guy like him. But with the second most money to spend, the draft is not insignificant, but maybe a little less important, to your point, on the resources that you have.